What if the very things that feel good are the ones slowly draining your power? What if your cravings, your habits, even your daily comforts weren't entirely your own? In a world engineered for distraction, pleasure has become a silent weapon. It doesn't arrive with chains or commands. It seduces, it comforts, and then it consumes. Behind every notification, indulgence, and manufactured thrill lies a hidden mechanism, not designed to uplift, but to extract. They don't steal your energy through force. They invite you to give it away. But here's the awakening. Pleasure was never meant to trap you. It was meant to tune you. Sacred, intentional, life-affirming, not synthetic, compulsive, and empty. This journey will expose the mechanisms of hijack, from dopamine loops to frequency manipulation, and guide you back to the source of your true joy, your unshakable, sovereign energy. It's time to step beyond the pleasure trap and remember who you are without it. In a world constantly chasing the next thrill, the definition of joy has been subtly and systematically reprogrammed. Once rooted in deep connection, soulful expression, and harmonious presence, joy has now been reduced to a stimulus-response cycle of fleeting highs. They sell it in pixels and packages, the scroll of a feed, the bite of sugar, the ping of validation. But behind the smile that follows is often a vacuum, a numbness, a silent question. Why doesn't this last? Society has traded true joy for temporary relief, and few realize the switch even happened. This illusion wasn't accidental, it was engineered. From advertising psychology to algorithmic manipulation, pleasure has been weaponized. The human nervous system, designed to respond to nature, breath, and real touch, is now bombarded by stimuli that promise pleasure but deliver dependency. The system thrives when people confuse convenience with happiness and consumption with fulfillment. The more detached from inner joy one becomes, the more easily they're pulled into external traps, hungry for the next fix, never questioning who set the bait. True joy, in contrast, doesn't spike, it radiates. It's a resonance, not a reaction. It emerges from coherence between heart and mind, from alignment with one's soul frequency. But the modern illusion pulls us outward, away from this center. We're taught to pursue, not to receive, to consume, not to commune. It's a subtle inversion, a sacred birthright buried under dopamine-triggering distractions. Ask a child what joy feels like and they'll describe something simple: dancing, laughing, being held. No screens, no purchases, just energy flowing freely without resistance. Somewhere along the way, adults are taught to mistrust that simplicity. The deeper truth is this: joy doesn't require permission or products. It requires presence. But presence doesn't profit anyone, so the illusion is sold harder. Recognizing this hijack is the first act of rebellion. To question our definitions is to begin reclaiming our frequency. What if the things that feel good aren't actually good for you? What if true joy doesn't rush in, but rises up from within? This is not just a mental shift, it's an energetic one. It's how awakening begins. The human nervous system is a divine instrument, a living antenna attuned to the energies of nature, intuition, and presence. But when hijacked, it becomes a tool of manipulation. The hijack begins not with force, but with subtle stimulation, particularly of the neurotransmitter dopamine. Dopamine, often misunderstood as the molecule of pleasure, is actually the molecule of pursuit. It keeps you reaching, chasing, scrolling, craving. And those who understand this, the architects of media, marketing, and technology, have learned how to keep humanity forever in motion, forever unsatisfied. Each ping, notification, like and/or advertisement is a well-timed drip into the brain's reward system. The more frequent the hits, the more the brain adapts, needing higher doses just to feel normal. This is how addiction forms, not just to substances, but to behaviors. Stimulation becomes a prison, and in this overstimulated state, the higher faculties of consciousness, intuition, awareness, empathy, begin to dim. The body tightens, the breath shortens, and energy becomes fragmented. When you're constantly stimulated, you lose the ability to feel deeply. You're pulled out of the parasympathetic nervous system, the state of rest, healing, and connection, and thrust into sympathetic overdrive, fight, flight, or freeze. This chronic stress response keeps you reactive, not reflective. It's easy to manipulate someone who's perpetually distracted and emotionally dysregulated. They consume more, sleep less, think shallowly, and never pause long enough to ask, who's steering my mind? But here's the deeper truth. You are not your reactions. You are the consciousness behind the nervous system, the presence that can observe, recalibrate, and reclaim control. The first step is awareness. Notice what spikes your energy, not in elevation but in agitation. The need to check, to scroll, to escape. These are the signs of hijack. Unseen clearly, they lose power. Healing the hijacked system is both ancient and simple: breathwork, nature, silence, and mindful embodiment. When you retune your nervous system, you don't just find calm, you reconnect to your soul's frequency. And in that alignment, external control begins to dissolve. You move from being manipulated to being magnetic, from reacting to reality to creating it. Every thought, emotion, and experience vibrates. This is not poetic metaphor, it's quantum reality. At the subatomic level, everything is frequency, and the human body, when in coherence, resonates at high vibrational states like love, gratitude, and presence. But the engineered pleasure of modernity, instant, synthetic, and addictive, causes a subtle but measurable drop in that frequency. When we chase temporary highs, we often sacrifice our energetic sovereignty. The initial thrill of pleasure creates a spike, but it's followed by a crash. That crash is not just emotional, it's vibrational. The energy body becomes scattered, the aura weakened, and the electromagnetic field around the heart loses coherence. You can feel it after the binge, after the scroll, after the indulgence. There's a fog, a depletion, a silent tug downward. This is not about morality, it's about energetic integrity. Some pleasures feed your soul, others feed the system. The trap is in the repetition. When low vibrational pleasure becomes a pattern, your baseline frequency adjusts downward. This makes it harder to access higher states of consciousness, intuition, clarity, synchronicity. It's like trying to tune into a cosmic broadcast with static on the line. You may not notice the interference right away, but over time, the disconnection becomes your norm. And in that norm, we become susceptible to anxiety, confusion, depression, all symptoms of an energy field out of alignment. But there's a deeper reason this matters. Frequency determines reality. As taught in Hermetic wisdom and confirmed in quantum studies, the law of vibration is the master key. What you vibrate at, you attract. So when your frequency is hijacked through synthetic pleasure, your manifestations shift. You begin drawing in chaotic relationships, dead-end paths, emotional turbulence. It's not punishment, it's resonance. The good news, you can reverse it. By choosing resonance over reaction, alignment over impulse, you begin to rise. Practices like heart coherence breathing, gratitude journaling, and frequency music recalibrate the field. They lift you out of the trap and back into your natural state, empowered, magnetic, awake. This is how energy becomes your ally again, not through denial, but through discernment. Every craving has a cost, not just to the individual, but to the collective energy field of humanity. What we often call consumerism is, in truth, a sophisticated system of energy harvesting. It operates not just economically, but metaphysically. Behind every impulse buy, every compulsive scroll, every binge, there are entities, visible and invisible, that profit from your unconscious attention. Your energy, your focus, your life force. These are the real currencies of the modern age. Think of it this way: whenever you engage in unconscious consumption, you give away your attention, and where attention goes, energy flows. Corporations, algorithms, and even astral forces have learned how to siphon this flow. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's energy dynamics. The law of correspondence teaches that every level of reality reflects another. So what appears as marketing and media on one level may mirror energetic parasitism on another. The question isn't just, what am I buying? It's what am I feeding with my energy? The tragedy is that most people are unaware this is even happening. We think we're choosing, when in fact we're reacting, to stimuli that have been carefully engineered to bypass our conscious filters. From the colors used in ads to the timing of notifications, it's all designed to keep you slightly off-center. And the more you're off-center, the easier you are to control. This is not accidental. It's alchemical inversion, turning your divine energy into fuel for someone else's agenda. But there's a deeper layer. Many ancient traditions speak of entities that feed on lower vibrations: fear, addiction, shame. Whether interpreted as egregores, archons, or psychological archetypes, the theme is consistent. When we operate in unconscious craving, we become energetic food. This is the harvest, not of crops, but of consciousness, and the system thrives on it. The more disconnected from your true power, the more you consume. The more you consume, the less you feel. It's a perfect loop. Awareness breaks the spell. Once you see the mechanism, you can step out of it. You start asking different questions. Does this elevate me? Does this align with my soul? You start replacing consumption with creation, reaction with presence, craving with connection. And as your energy becomes sovereign again, the harvest ends because you've become the gardener of your own consciousness. The brain is not fixed. It is fluid, malleable, rewiring itself with every experience. This is neuroplasticity, the science of how your thoughts shape your physical brain. But what few understand is how easily this miraculous gift can be turned into a prison. When pleasure is artificially reinforced over and over again, the neural pathways around it deepen, habits form, patterns solidify, and soon the brain begins to automate behaviors that once required intention. You no longer choose, you react. You no longer create, you repeat. This is how the pleasure trap becomes embedded into your biology. The dopamine loop, triggered by quick rewards, carves grooves into the mind's terrain. What was once novel becomes necessary. You crave what you've trained your brain to crave, even if it harms you. And the more these circuits fire, the more natural they feel, even when they're unnatural. The pattern becomes your personality. The trap becomes your identity. But the deeper layer isn't just neurological, it's energetic. Every repeated behavior carries a frequency. And over time, these frequencies crystallize in your field, forming what ancient mystics called samskaras, energetic imprints from repeated action. These imprints create attractor fields, pulling you into similar situations, thoughts, and emotions. This is why it can feel like you're stuck, because you are, both mentally and energetically. Yet here's the empowering truth. Just as patterns are formed, they can be unformed. The brain, like energy, responds to intention. When you become aware of your patterns, truly aware with presence and non-judgment, you begin to loosen their grip. You can introduce new circuits, ones aligned with your higher self: gratitude over gratification, breath over impulse, stillness over stimulation. And each time you choose differently, you rewire both brain and being. Neuroplasticity, when used consciously, becomes a spiritual tool. It's how the mind is trained to serve the soul, but it requires discipline, not punishment, but presence. The willingness to pause, to interrupt the loop, to say, I am not this pattern. I am the awareness behind it. In that moment, the prison becomes a path, one that leads not to comfort, but to conscious liberation. Not all pleasure is a trap. In ancient traditions, pleasure was considered sacred, a gateway to divinity, not a distraction from it. From the tantric practices of the East to the ecstatic rituals of indigenous tribes, pleasure was once honored as a tool for transcendence. It was slow, intentional, connected. It elevated the soul, harmonized the body, and awakened dormant energies. This is the forgotten wisdom. Pleasure, when aligned with presence, can become a spiritual technology. Contrast this with today's version: instant gratification, sensory overload, and numbed sensation. Modern pleasure is fast, fragmented, and disconnected. It isolates rather than unites. It floods the senses but starves the spirit. And most importantly, it bypasses the heart. Sacred pleasure moves through the heart. It connects you to self, to other, to source. Artificial pleasure bypasses the heart. It loops in the mind and body, creating hunger without fulfillment. Ancient cultures knew that pleasure was not just about feeling good. It was about frequency tuning. Whether through dance, breath, sound, or sacred union, they used pleasure to elevate vibration, to commune with the divine. There was reverence, there was ritual. Every sensation was infused with meaning, but today, meaning is stripped away. Pleasure is consumed, not received. It's extracted, not exchanged. This shift in intention is what makes all the difference. When pleasure is sacred, it deepens your presence. When it's synthetic, it dilutes it. The key isn't to reject pleasure, it's to reclaim it, to shift from unconscious indulgence to conscious embodiment. This means slowing down, breathing deeper, and tuning in. It means asking, does this pleasure expand me or contract me? Does it bring me closer to my essence or pull me further away? These questions begin to rewire your pleasure map. To return to sacred pleasure is to reclaim sovereignty over your senses. It's to remember that you are not here to suppress your desires, but to elevate them, to transmute them into power, presence, and purpose. This is what the ancients knew, and what we must now remember. That true pleasure is not an escape from the self, but a reunion with it. In the silence between breaths lies the doorway to your deepest power. The world pulls you outward, into noise, motion, stimulation, but your life force resides within. It is subtle yet infinite, and the most direct access point is your breath. Every conscious inhale brings energy in. Every exhale releases distortion. This is not metaphor, it's physiology, it's vibration, it's alchemy. The breath is how spirit animates the body. And in a society built on disconnection, returning to breath is a radical act of reclamation. Stillness is the second key. In stillness, the nervous system recalibrates. The mind slows, the energy field harmonizes, but stillness can feel uncomfortable at first because it confronts you with what distraction hides. The discomfort isn't the stillness itself, it's the detox of overstimulation. When you begin to unplug from the pleasure trap, there's a withdrawal phase. This is the shadow emerging, not to punish you, but to be seen and healed. And in that space, your authentic energy begins to rise. Your life force, or prana, chi, elan, vital, is not generated by external input. It is sustained by alignment. Alignment of thought, breath, emotion, and action. When these are in coherence, your energy becomes radiant. You no longer need to chase stimulation because you are the source. Practices like pranayama, meditation, and qigong don't just relax you. They awaken the flow. They rebuild the circuits that synthetic pleasure short-circuited. And slowly, You begin to feel full again, not full from consumption, but from connection. One of the most powerful shifts happens when you move from what can I get to what can I generate. In that moment, you stop outsourcing your energy and begin cultivating it. Your aura strengthens. Your boundaries become energetic rather than defensive. You become less reactive, more magnetic. This is the essence of sovereignty. To live by inner power, not outer stimuli. And it's available to anyone willing to sit, breathe, and listen. Reclaiming your life force isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. It's not asceticism, it's awakening. To remember that your energy is sacred, that your attention is currency, and that in every moment you have the power to either feed the trap or fuel your transcendence. Desire is not the enemy, it's a compass. But when hijacked by the machinery of instant gratification, desire becomes distorted. What once guided the soul now loops in the mind, spiraling toward cravings, addictions, and unmet needs. To live beyond the pleasure trap is not to reject desire, but to rewire your relationship with it. To distinguish between a soul call and a dopamine pull, between the fire that creates and the fire that consumes. The first step is discernment. Begin observing your desires as signals, not commands. Ask, where is this coming from? What frequency am I in when this arises? Some desires emerge from lack, others from expansion. One contracts your energy, the other expands it. This level of self-inquiry isn't meant to judge, but to clarify. When you sit with desire instead of acting on it immediately, it either fades or reveals something deeper. Often, beneath the surface craving lies a truer longing for connection, for meaning, for expression. Living beyond the trap also means redefining pleasure through the lens of alignment. Seek pleasures that nourish rather than numb, that heighten presence rather than scatter it. Movement, art, authentic conversation, spiritual practice, these don't just feel good, they raise your vibration. And over time, the nervous system relearns what true satisfaction feels like. The highs become softer, steadier, and more sustaining. You shift from peak moments to continuous resonance. There's also power in setting energetic standards. When you decide, truly decide, that your energy is sacred, your life begins to rearrange. Old habits fall away, not through force, but through frequency mismatch. You no longer resonate with what drains you. You begin to attract relationships, opportunities, and environments that support your coherence. And desire returns to its rightful place as an evolutionary guide, not a controlling master. Ultimately, transcending the pleasure trap is not about restriction. It's about remembering. Remembering that your natural state is one of joy, clarity, and power. That you don't need to escape reality when you're aligned with it. And that the greatest pleasure of all is feeling your own energy in flow. Not stolen, not scattered, but sovereign and alive. You were never meant to live in pursuit. Not of the next hit, the next like, the next fleeting thrill. You were meant to live in presence, magnetic, grounded, fully alive. They trained you to trade your infinite essence for temporary highs. To believe your power was outside of you, but now you see the game. The pleasure trap only works when you're disconnected from your truth. And that truth is this: you are the source, the current, the creator. Each breath you take in awareness is a reclamation. Each moment you choose coherence over chaos, you're shifting timelines. You're not just breaking free, you're becoming whole. So breathe deeper, feel more, and begin again from the inside out. If this awakened something within you, like this video and subscribe to the Cosmic Awakening channel, where truth isn't told, it's remembered.